All right, everybody, welcome to Chiustream. Super excited to have this very special stream with my buddy Jonathan Hardesty,
What's up, everybody?
fine artist extraordinaire, as well as one of the newest schoolism teachers to join us in our epic lineup. He's going to be teaching Essentials of Realism.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, in the early 2016. Definitely sign up for that if you can. But as well, I want to mention, for first timers, this stream, what it's about, this is a chance for us to just kind of hang out, talk about art, and for you guys to interact as well. So feel free to, ask us any questions that you have, whatever it might be, um,
absolutely.
in the chat. And start it off with the word question in capital letters, and then we'll be able to see it a lot easier. Okay, so that's the kind of instructions for this morning. Otherwise, welcome everybody. Usually, what we do is we have an exercise. John. Usually, when we
hmm
start these streams, I have an exercise in mind, and I would explain to everybody uh, the purpose of the exercise and any instructions. Today's instructions are to do something Star Wars.
Oh
Why?
yeah.
Because I watched Star Wars last week and totally geeked out. I'm not gonna do anything that's spoiler alert, so don't worry, everybody. But yeah, kind of had to do something Star Wars today. So feel
I
free
just
to
saw
do
it
some
last
Star
night.
Wars. Oh yeah, right on, right
Yeah,
on. What'd you think?
I absolutely loved it.
What did you love about it?
Well, I thought if I have to summarize it, because I don't want to go on too long, and I don't
Yeah,
want to
no
take any risk
spoilers,
of
no
spoilers.
spoilers.
Yeah. But I thought it captured the original essence, but like updated it. You know what I mean? That's what I would say. Like it lived up to. I mean, you and I watched the original so many times probably, and so I felt like this was true to that, and then but kind of took you on a new journey, and of course incorporated, crazy awesome effects and all that. So it was great. Loved it.
Yeah, you know what I loved about it was it was it stayed true to the originals kind of thing.
Yep.
It did a lot of like there's a lot of sentimental value, let's just say, right?
Yes,
There's a
exactly.
lot of sentimental
Exactly.
value, which was really nice. Like, yeah, like
There were so many cool things too.
totally, totally.
It's really hard for me to not talk about it
I
right
know, I know.
now.
Let's totally change the subject. We'll
Yeah.
go on to some questions. If anybody has any questions, type them in the chat. But otherwise, yeah, let's try to stay off of the Star Wars thing. So, the other thing
That's
I want to
right.
mention is, take the time if you can, sketch with us because sketching, drawing, painting, the act of doing is like 95% of it. So,
Absolutely.
if you upload your, whatever it is you do, Star Wars ish themed, hashtag it Chiustream. Okay, if you hashtag it that, then I can find it easily, and then I'll post up my favorite next stream. This time I didn't. I don't have one prepared, so next time I'll prepare two images that everybody has done, out there in the internet, and put a little spotlight on you guys. So, um, before we were actually gonna do this stream, John, I wrote down a couple
Mhm.
things that I thought, I was interested to hear your what you do. Okay, so the first one was, for me, one of the big questions that I get asked all the time is how do you get so much done? Because
Mhm.
always doing stuff, and
Right.
you as a parent, any parent out there, if you're still doing art, you're getting a lot done. you know, so uh, getting for me, one of the keys is to get into the habit of doing the most important thing that you don't want to do and do that first.
Yeah.
Are there any kind of important things that you don't want to do, but you know it's good for you that you know, that you have to do anyways?
Oh yeah, there's plenty for me. I mean, even as a fine artist, it's like there's lots of things like, stretching canvases, which is not, I mean, it's not fun, like building a canvas and stretching. I mean, it's fun like the first couple times you do it, and then it's, you know, but also I think just, I think sometimes one of the traps of actually doing well as an artist is that you're doing well at what somebody's hiring you to do what you're good at. And for me, like, I sell paintings, there's certain things that I'm good at, and certain things that I probably need work in. So it's very easy to just fall in line where you're just doing those things over and over again. You're like, this is something that makes me money, and I'm just going to do this. But to actually make an effort to like iron out your problem areas and keep growing and changing, that takes really intentional effort. You have to, like, I have to say, okay, like, I've got a plan for this next year, like what problem areas I have and how I want to stamp out those problems. And there's going to be exercises that I do before I do the work that I'm going to do for the galleries and things like that. I'm going to, be doing some of those exercises, every day or every week or whatever I've kind of assigned, so that is, and they're boring. They're not like, I'm
Like
not creating this.
for example, what kind of exercise would it be? Like you're studying, you want to do a gallery show on flowers, so you start studying flowers every day. Is
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It'd be something like that. It's like, for me, like I want to do more landscapes, and I've done some, but one of the issues I had was, like, this is just one example, but like the textural edge, like when someone, a lot of landscape artists, when they'll block in things based on, the shapes of light and dark, but then you'll know the tree line based on the way the edges break up and like the texture of that tree line. They can make the foliage look like how it looks based on the breakup pattern of that value. You know what I mean? How the texture kind of bleeds off, and that's very tricky in oils. Especially when you're working wet into wet to get those effects. So like that's just one example, like where I'm going to be doing a bunch of master copies and a bunch of studies where I am just focusing on that, like putting a sky behind it, making a tree, and making the different types of trees, and seeing what brushwork I need to communicate that foliage or communicate, that's a good example. Because then when I go out and do a landscape, when I'm on the spot and the sun's going down, I'm not sitting there saying, oh crap, how do I do this, So,
Yeah,
you know,
like especially that golden time of just like the half an hour before the sun
yes,
sets and things like
yes,
that.
yes, totally. So that's a good example. Or, if I realize I'm having trouble with values, like in a particular value scheme, a certain kind of lighting scheme, or like stuff I don't practice as much, like maybe like more of a high key value scheme or something like that. I'll do some intentional exercises that way, or maybe I'll do some textural things, like I'll grab some like different textures and practice them and lots
Now,
of different things.
that to me is super interesting because, as you start to get more in demand, you start to get busier, these kind of
Yeah,
things get harder and harder to maintain in
absolutely.
your schedule, right? So, how do you go about maintaining it? Is it a specific time that you schedule that you're going to do this? And if anything comes in the way, uh, nothing can come in the way. You would have to
Right.
reschedule
Yeah.
visiting your parents or whatever it is later, right? How
You
do you
know,
schedule?
like for me, like I think the most important thing, and I know this sounds simple, but I think the most important thing is being efficient with your time. Like I think, like don't play video games, or don't, like, I mean, like I have a studio out back, which is nice. It's away from the house. And I have a TV in my studio that I use as a monitor for like reference and things like that. I can actually stand up and stand back and use it. It's on the wall above my computer and stuff. And so I use that, but I don't really watch anything, out here. And so, you know, I can keep myself separate that way. And really it's just, I the more efficient I can be, the better, you know. The more I can stay on track with it. Like when you start like saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna, you know, let me just do this for a little bit," and that, you know, and start doing that. If you just set a schedule and keep to that schedule, I don't actually have to come out and work like, you know, there's some days where I have to work like 14 or 16 hours, you know, when there's deadlines or different things like that. And I know you know all about that too, more than I do, I'm sure. But most of the day, most times I'm working 8 to 10 hours a day, and it's just a normal day because I'm like really getting to it. You know, the second I come out, I'm getting to it, getting rolling. And I've told my family and other people like, I'm working, you know what I mean? Just because you come in and it's on my property doesn't mean I'm not working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. That's a good one. That's a
Yeah.
good one.
So yeah, I think I really honestly, I think it's just being efficient. Like, and that just means doing, you don't feel like doing that. You know, sometimes you wake up but you have to treat it like a normal job, you know, just because somebody doesn't feel like it, they have to get up at 6:30 and get to their job. You know, we need to treat ours the same way, you know?
Yeah, totally.
So,
Especially, you got kids as well that might not understand that as well. Like you're
right,
dealing
right.
with a totally different ball of wax.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
now,
tough.
something that I thought was really interesting in our interview when I interviewed you on Schoolism, you were saying, I was saying something like, well, what if, well, it was a question where you took it as like, what if you had this big studio already and, you didn't have the struggle of the tiny apartment starting
Hmm.
off, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then you right away, that's what you thought I was saying. I was saying something slightly different, but you thought I was saying that, and you're like, oh no, I wouldn't want that. And I thought that that was really interesting, right? Because a lot of the things that might feel negative to a lot of us is actually really positive and drives us towards the success that we get later on. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
absolutely.
So, like, one of the biggest obstacles a person can face uh, is to stay successful after being successful, right?
Yes.
What are those struggles for you? Like, is it um, maintaining the same kind of practices that you did before to so that you are constantly improving? Is it too much other crap now because you're actually selling stuff, so you got to worry about marketing or whatever? What are the successful problems for you? After what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's yeah, I think you hit on some of them. Like, you know, it's well, like one of the big things that happens, and I see this with painters all the time, is that they get um they they have one thing that works for them, and I can't blame them. You know what I mean? Like that they wanna do that, you know, but then that's all they're doing. And, you know, 5 or 6 years later, 10 years later, no one wants those paintings because it's the same thing that they've always done, you know, unless you're a marketing genius, you know, kind of like Thomas Kincaid or someone like that, you know, you can't really do the same thing over and over and over again. And it's hard, you know what I mean? It's hard. You could do it, but if you never push yourself, you're going to become stale, you know, personally, you're going to become stale, and also your work will become stale. So that's hard because you have to balance, you have to take a risk because literally you're doing work like that's a little bit different than what you've done or something like that. And for me, I had to find, you know, I'm working with a good gallery now, and I like them. And they give me sort of a wide berth. You know what I mean? Like they're not like telling me exactly what I need to do, you know, because what can happen is you get pigeonholed, and then the gallery's like, I don't want this other work. Like this is too experimental, or this is too this, or this is too that. And now you can go to different galleries, but then it's almost like you have two different identities, you know? And so it's tricky. Like you have to, yeah, I'm sure musicians probably feel the same way, like pop musicians, and then they're like, "Well, I want to do a jazz album," and the record company's like, "No, you're not doing a jazz album, you know, and you're Britney Spears. Britney Spears doesn't do jazz albums, or you know, or whatever, you know what I mean?" And you know, but then you have someone who is like Sting, who will do like a medieval lute album, you know, and then also do so that's kind of what I want to do. I want to be one of those guys that can kind of and so that's my goal. So I'm trying now, especially, and I always have sort of taken risks. So like one gallery that I was with told me you can't paint large, like we can't sell large paintings, and like because I said I had an idea for a painting, and so natural they said you can't do it, we won't be able to sell it and all that, you shouldn't waste your time with that. So naturally I went home and set up the biggest canvas I possibly could in my room and did that, and then they also told me you can't paint skulls. I was painting skulls, and my neighbor had a goat skull from like her dad or something, so I grabbed it, and you can't paint skulls and all that, so I painted the skull. And before they even hung it, it's sold. Someone walked in, they saw them getting it, and they said, "Don't hang that up. I want that painting," and they bought it. Before it even. And so they were telling me, "We can't sell that." And they were in Texas too, which I was like, "Come on, somebody in Texas is gonna want to buy a skull painting." And so, it's just funny. Like I think that's the hard thing is you have to still take risks, and early on you have nothing to lose when you take those risks, and later on you do. I mean, I got a family to provide for. I've got, you've got, clients that are saying this and that. You probably have those same pressures, and then you come at them with something different. You need someone who understands that, of course, to be able to do it. I don't know, but that's tough.
Well, something, to touch upon that, it's like in the beginning, yeah, you can experiment and failures will go away. People will forget them because they don't have any traction. Nobody even comments, nobody even sees them. But
Yeah,
then you
yeah.
start succeeding and people start to know you for stuff and you
Hmm.
start to gain a following. And then if you experiment at this point, now 55,000 people are going to look at this like
Right,
epic failure, right?
right,
Even
right,
though
right.
it's really the failures that lead you to the monumental
Exactly,
successes later on.
exactly.
So it is kind of like this very funny thing that artists have to go through as, if you can start to succeed, then you got this whole other thing where you're trying to stay succeeding.
Hmm. Hmm.
And for me, one of the big kind of challenges for me now is I'm used to being able to do certain things really well, and yeah, I can do that. I can paint that
Right.
creature or whatever. But if I try to learn something new, like ZBrush or uh, intricate architecture and painting that, all of a sudden that takes a different
Right.
set of techniques and all this stuff. And now I have to just be okay with stinking for a while,
Right. Right.
right? And that becomes a
Yeah.
real difficult thing to get used to. Like,
It's true.
all this stuff stinks, right?
Yeah, 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 totally. And that's kind of like I do some landscapes. I'm not, I don't do too many, but that's what I'm going to be doing this next year. And so I know I'm going to have to throw away like probably 30 to 50% of what I do,
So let
and
me just let me just cut in. So are you saying that you are preparing? You're mentally kind of preparing yourself, saying like everything that I do of that, I am expecting it to look bad because that's part of my studies. That's part of my learning process.
oh, sure. Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, I throw away a lot of my work. Like I mean, it depends who you talk to. The different people do that differently, but I throw away a lot of my work because if it's not working, like especially since I work a la prima a lot of the time, I don't, if it's not working, I just chuck it. And actually, when I was at the Imaginism house with Thierry, and I see Thierry on here too. What's up, Thierry? When I was there with the students, we did a quick a quick painting, and I told them, they said, "Oh, well, would this be typical kind of what you do?" I said, "Well, I'd probably throw this away if I was at home." And they were like, "Wow." I said, "Well, I think I could do it better." And it's an alla prima painting. I said, "So I'd probably take the lessons I learned from this and probably do it again." And they were like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I'd chuck it." You know, so but that happens. I mean, it's now if I'm going to do a larger painting that's a really involved composition, then what I usually do is do a lot of studies before that, so I know what I'm doing.
Hmm. A lot more
But
prep.
but yeah, I'm okay with that now. Like and actually I put a big we were in the middle of painting something, and I said, "You guys can't be so attached to the end result. You got to fall in love with the process." So I took my brush and went right across the center of the painting. I was like, "Brr," and just went right across the center, just to show him like who cares, you know what I mean? I said, like it doesn't matter, like it's the process. And by the end you couldn't see that ugly stroke that I put over top of everything.
Well, actually, this actually relates to a question that Katie Jackson asked. She said, "Do you ever get bogged down in a single piece of art? Sometimes it can take me months to get an image ready for my portfolio, and I find this is a huge issue."
Mm. Well, there are some paintings that are sort of the bane of your existence, that happens, like where they just, but I don't know. I mean, to me, I feel like if you have to spend that long, then there's probably something in the fundamentally that wasn't going right from the beginning, or wasn't you didn't prepare right, maybe, or something, like, because if you're working it out at the thumbnail stage, that may take you a long time, to work it out there, and then the next stage may take you a long time or whatever. But you should feel like you're moving forward in each stage. I mean, I don't know if you'd agree with that, Bobby, but to me, if you're having to rework and rework and rework and rework, then it probably was a fundamental issue from the beginning that should have been solved at that early stage. I mean, that's how I kind of see it. I don't know.
I feel like it's a problem with procedure, right?
Right,
Like,
right,
yeah, if they prepared in a different way, then they wouldn't have spent so much time on the final. A lot of
right,
times when you prepare things the right way, you know it's going to succeed, right?
right,
Because you've
right,
already done the preparation and tons
right.
of it. Uh, and well, the other advice that I would give Katie is, uh, it's not for everybody, but I like to work on multiple pieces at one time.
Yeah, me too. Me
So
too.
if you get stuck, you go on to the next piece, and then you come back to that
Absolutely.
first piece, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I was so stoked to move into the studio that I have here, is because I have a lot more space. Because I guess I'm like, I've always been sort of ADD, like, and my son is a little bit like that too, so I understand him. He needs something that's always keeping him busy. But I don't think I would officially be diagnosed, but I'd probably be pretty close. The teachers would probably hate me, you know, even now. But it's one of those things where I always need multiple setups. I always need multiple paintings to be working on, and I'm the same as you, man. Like, I like to jump between different things, and I have drying times to bounce, to deal with as well. So I usually have, most of the time I have three or four things going on, and then I have two or three other things in my head that I know are coming in the future, or something like that.
Yeah, and sometimes if I'm really stuck, sometimes I'll just go to some like a job that's completely different, like
Right,
review some schoolism student assignments,
right,
and
right.
that makes me feel better because
You
you
can
know
get something done. Yeah.
yeah, you're still getting stuff done. You're still
Yeah.
getting stuff done,
Yeah.
and you get somebody's assignment, you can improve it, so
Right.
there's productivity there. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Totally.
We have another question, which is this is a really great question by Jonas. Jonas asks, "Do you know any artists who do 100% and use common sense and never stop and still never have a successful career as an artist?" I'll let you answer this one first.
Well, I don't. Well, I mean, well, I will say that is by far the minority. Like, everybody sees that. Like, there are certain people that you meet when people say I'm tone deaf or whatever, and I say, okay, sing Happy Birthday with me, and they go, Happy Birthday to you, and they sing it. So I'm like, you're not tone deaf. You just sang Happy Birthday with me. Like, could you learn how to sing? Yeah, you could. Maybe you wouldn't be the best singer in the world, but if you trained, you could do it. You can hear that melody. But very, very occasionally, way less than people think it is, there is someone who is actually tone deaf, where they can't actually distinguish when they are singing incorrectly at all. Like, if a person says, I'm not a good singer, then that shows that they have some concept of what a melody is. Do you know what I mean? So it's the same with art. Like, there are a few people, I'm sure, that all of us know, that would, no matter what they did it's just not in them. Like it would probably be the most analytical person ever, like a superhero accountant or something like that. Maybe I don't know. I'm just like being funny, but like someone who's super analytical. Even they could probably draw something accurately. So I don't even know if that's the case. But there's probably someone who's tone deaf in an art or blind. I guess you can say art blind or something. But that's rare. That's rare. Most other people can learn it. They can do it. 99% of people. That's what I would say.
I would say, yeah, I'm like so tempted to just say, I think it's like 100% of people.
Right.
If they can
Right.
use their common sense and put in effort, 100% effort, yeah, you will for sure make it. If your
Right.
common sense is sound. Now, actually, we should probably change common sense into logic. Like
Yes.
because
Right.
sometimes common sense, it's not right. The common sense
Yes.
amongst
That.
people,
Yes. Yes. That is
right? So
correct.
if you have good logic and
Hmm.
you are working at 100%, for sure, I feel like you would totally make it. And the ones that don't are the ones that, nothing against them, but maybe they just had the wrong logic.
Right.
They weren't thinking at a certain level that they should have been thinking or thinking about the wrong thing.
I also think pride comes into it like big time. I think there's something that you will see in successful artists, most of them. We never like well, that's not true. That happens occasionally, but most successful artists do not talk smack about other artists. And the reason they don't is because they know how stinking hard it is. And instead what happens is, when everybody gets together, we're like, how do you do that? That's awesome. You are the best. And they're like, no, you are the best. Like that's what happens like all the time. It's because we're coming at it with an attitude of kind of humbleness, saying, wow, we've got so much to learn. We've got so, like, you can't possibly learn it in your lifetime. So when you meet another artist that's doing something really good, you want to know about it and you want to ask them. And one of the things I've seen with unsuccessful artists or artists who are struggling is that they have this like there's like an insecurity mixed with some pride, so it makes them not see their own problems, or at least not face them, and not say like, let me face this head on. I want to tackle this problem that I have, and this person's doing it better than me. Let me just get some help. I mean, and then when they tell you, when five people tell you what you need to change or what needs to happen, do it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Well,
Don't
maybe I
just
need to talk to a sixth person, and maybe that
right.
person will say I don't have a problem
Well,
there.
right, right. That's what I'm saying. And that happens. And it actually is very, like, that happens without you realizing it. You know what I mean? Like, it happens because, and I've found that it happens with someone who's been, see, I started from nothing, but I started at age 22 and I had done nothing before that. So I didn't have any feeling like, I was just like, okay, I'm starting from the ground up. Like, I don't know anything, and I didn't have any uh, thoughts about that. But someone who has been drawing for a while and then all of a sudden is confronted with the fact that they have to realize, wow, my fundamentals are super crappy. Like that's hard. It's hard to be like, I have to go all the way back now and start again.
For sure.
I don't know.
It
That's
feels
tough.
like, it must feel like, wow, I've been kind of running the wrong direction all this time and working super hard at running the wrong direction.
Right. And that's hard to, some people
That's
can't face
totally
that.
hard. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's tricky. It's
I
tricky.
feel like that helps to fuel a lot of the statistics that we have about, people trying to become artists. Like,
Hmm.
oh, only this many people will succeed at being an artist, this and that. You know, like when I feel like the better kind of statistic to look at is, let's look at everybody that tried 100% and are
Right.
always trying to use their logic. How
Yes.
many of those people failed?
Exactly. Exactly.
I would really doubt that it would be a high percentage at all.
Yeah, I agree 100. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's true because like, and the thing about it is this too, like you guys have to remember, you don't need to be the best artist in the world to be a successful artist. I am, it would be laughable to say that I'm the best fine artist out there right now alive. That would be laughable. You know what I mean? But that doesn't matter, you know? I know a lot because I've worked hard. I'm not discounting that. You know what I mean? I think I'm good, but it's like, but you don't need to be the best to make a living. You know what I mean? And you don't need to be the best to contribute, you know? So when you have this goal of like, I want to be an artist, like it's a progression. I'm going to be one of the best fine artists. You know, it's going to take me a little bit longer. You know what I mean? That's what I'm working towards, you know, but I'm still making a career during the process and I'm loving what I do. You know what I mean?
Oh
You know,
yeah. Well,
I don't,
and absolutely, like this is the thing. Hardly anybody actually obtains their true ultimate goals in life.
right,
They a
right.
lot of times they will change their goals and kind of dumb it down to something more obtainable, stuff like that.
Yep, yep.
People used to all want to be astronauts, and then they end up being okay with just selling space cakes, stuff
Right.
like that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
you if it took you 20 years or all your life to get to that supreme level that you would love to get to, tell me that wouldn't be worth it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It would
Right.
still be absolutely worth it. If I had to spend my whole life to to get an opportunity to design a character like Yoda, right?
Right.
I would
Right.
totally be up for that.
Absolutely. And it's the process too. Like, you know, so much of the external pressure that everyone puts on you for anything, you know, is about the end result. You know what I mean? Like, you know, well, the end result, you know, like, you know, even as a dad, you know, a lot of people when they talk about it, like, well, what are your kids going to do when they grow up? What are they going to do in that? Like, what, you know? Well, yeah, I mean that all that's important, you know, and them being quote unquote successful. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's I understand all that, but like, but I'm also really enjoying the process. Like, I like them. You know what I mean? And they're cool. Like, my kids are awesome, and so I'm not only thinking about what's going to happen down the road. I'm thinking about the process and I'm falling in love with that. And whether that's changing diapers and, you know, whether that's whatever it is, you know, and it can be frustrating, just like, you know, any career like art or anything can be frustrating too. But if you fall in love with the process, then you will never be disappointed. You know, if you learn to, you know, I don't know. So I really, I feel like don't focus what will happen is if you stop focusing on the end result and you just every day say, I love getting up to making art. And yeah, sometimes it sucks. Sometimes I don't want to do it. Sometimes I don't feel like doing it, but I'm going to get up and do it anyways. You'll fall in love with the process. And then all of a sudden you'll look around and you'll say, hey, I'm pretty good. You know, I've been doing this for a while and I'm pretty good, you know, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to keep going because I really like this, you know, and you know, all of a sudden everyone else will have stressed themselves out and everything like that. If you just it's that perseverance and I don't know, fall in love with the process, you know, enjoy it. And that means the hard things too, you know, as much as you can.
Totally. Yeah, it's really interesting actually talking with you about a lot of these things. One thing I wanted to add to the whole kind of thought about a successful version of yourself is I remember at a point kind of telling myself, you know, if I really think about what that successful version of me is, and when do I get up? How do I talk to people? How do I act? What are my
Mm-hmm.
habits? All this stuff. Then I will be able to step into that successful version of myself, and then everything that was successful about myself would then come into fruition.
Right, right.
Is that like I don't know if you could relate to that kind of idea, but I just thought it was something interesting to mention.
Yeah, absolutely. You mean like you get an idea of like you break down sort of like your goals and then you sort of step into those goals. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, but it's more like instead of goals, it's more like you as a person. So like
Oh,
you're starting
yes.
off. I'm starting off. I just started a studio, 10 years ago. Nobody knows me.
Hmm.
And then I think to myself, well, how would that successful version of me that's constantly working on video games and AAA movies and stuff like that, when does that person get up? You know,
Hmm.
when does that
Right.
person go to sleep? How much TV does that person watch and all this
Right.
stuff?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Oh yeah, totally. Totally. Like and that's I think honestly, that's what makes it difficult is and that's what makes, I mean, just to draw a parallel, of course, I mean, again, like with parenting or anything, because it's all the same. It's just, a commitment, but it's like you said, you're thinking ahead to you're changing yourself, you're working hard on yourself, and that's what makes it difficult. Like if you can change your thinking, your behavior, things like that, the success and all that stuff is just going to follow, all of that's just going to happen as a natural byproduct of this change in behavior and this change in that's I mean that's a hard thing to communicate to a student, you know what I mean? It's it's very difficult, to tell them that like you need to become a new person, really, but that's what needs to happen.
Well, like if you stayed the same way that you were in grade one, would that be okay to keep going through grade two?
Right.
No,
Right.
because you didn't learn, you didn't evolve, right? So if you're at a certain level in your life right now, is that okay for you to stay that way so that you can reach the next level? Probably
Right.
not.
Right. Right. Totally. Totally. Yeah, you have to change. Like, and that's, I hear that all the time. People are like, even when they get married or whatever, they're like, you can't change me. I'm who I am. And I'm like, you better change if you don't change because your circumstances are changing. So if you're the same person 20 years from now, that's not good. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's not a good thing at all. Like, I want my wife to change me for the better. You know what I mean? She does, and so and my kids do too, and I needed to change, when I had kids and when I became an artist, I needed to do things differently. I wanted to be successful. And actually what's funny is I was super undisciplined really before I did art. Like I didn't know it, but I was very undisciplined. Like, and I had just done something. I had done a whole bunch of different things and stuck with it till it got hard. And then when it got hard, I just gave up. I realized I moved on to something else and did something else. And then when it got difficult, I moved on to something else. And that was my excuse. Like I liked a bunch of different things and all that, but I needed to change my complete, and that was very, very difficult, very difficult. That did not come without pain, for sure, for sure.
Well, any kind of growth, it seems like pain is its natural, you know, uh, sidekick.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. It's funny because my wife, what she does is like, well, she helped me get it more in shape actually, and I don't know. This is crazy. I just saw this the other day. I lost 27 pounds in the past like 9 months or whatever, which is crazy. And I didn't think I had that to lose, but but I feel really good now. But the thing is like what I would say at the beginning when I first started working out is like I can't wait till this doesn't feel hard anymore when I'm working out. And she started laughing one time. She's like, John, she's like, that's never gonna happen. She's like, if it feels like it's easy, you're not doing anything. She's like, so so I had to learn to accept the fact, and then I started to enjoy it. Well, I have to push myself. You know what I mean? And so when I push myself, I get the results I want. But I mean, some days I just am working out and feeling like the only thing I want to do is stop doing this. you know?
No, totally, totally. And that's exactly, how I feel about this Yoda painting right now. I'm just going, this guy is starting to look more and more like one of my uncles or something. But, gotta keep going, gotta keep going.
Now, see, this happens to me sometimes too. This would be like, and see, you had to change the head size. Like I just have to scrap things if that happens. You know what I mean? I need to, well, I think I'm going to start pre-visualizing a lot of the stuff digitally. When I was there at the Imaginism house, I hadn't done a digital painting for a while, and I did it on that Cintiq and did sort of like an alla prima version of one of the guys that was there and Wanby and it was fun. And I was like, I could probably do quick studies on this and really tear through ideas, and I think I'm going to start doing that and really just go through the ideas and then get what I think will work and then I don't know, pre-visualize it that way. I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah. No, I've seen a lot of artists do that as well, and they do a very effective job of it.
Yeah, it's time saver.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Masay, what about you? Like, are there, um, do you want to contribute to this conversation at all? I know you're kind of just sitting there.
Oh no. Yeah, definitely technology. It's become very handy. So
Do you do any traditional
I've actually
stuff?
been touching on watercolor, and
Oh,
it's
nice.
been pretty fun. It kind of like gives me, and I try not to rush through it because digital, it's so easy to, just press Control Z and
Yeah.
yeah, keep on erasing. So I think it's really beneficial for a lot of artists just because like how you were saying you should like pre-visualizing, that's, I think that's really important as well, and also like taking the time of like thinking what to put down first, and
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm.
what color and how you want it to look, and then yeah, so but definitely doing the ideas on computer first is probably a good idea.
I find that when I paint in the computer, my steps are a lot more chopped up. Like if I got to do some intricate line, then I would chop it up into like three or four different steps,
Mhm.
as
Mm.
opposed to when I'm working traditionally, usually like with acrylic or watercolor, that wouldn't be three or four steps. That would be one step,
Oh.
right?
Right.
Because it kind of just works like that. If you did choppy, steps, you
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to refine it into something that really flowed and really was like kind of seamless and beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. It's I didn't I when I was painting there at the Imaginative House, I told him I said I'm not gonna use Control Z like hardly at all. You think I used it like three or four times or something, and I just painted on one layer because I just wanted to show him a different way. Like that's typically how I would, of course, do it in reality. I've got one layer. I can scrape it off, I can scrape it off if I need to, but there's something different about that. I think there's something different the finished product where you have put something down and left it, you know what I mean, and then you can't fix it. You can go over it, and modify it maybe, but at the end you have this there's a randomness that I think that comes into play, and when you can keep that under control, that randomness, it adds to the interest. So I think even digitally, I think a lot of times people could use a little bit of that where they put it down and say, well, I'm just going to leave this, and then maybe not Control Z, but maybe work around it or work over top of it, or I don't know. I think a lot of that would be useful. It would make it look more spontaneous, I think.
Yeah, and another thing that Paul Zane was saying, he used to do matte paintings traditionally back in the
Oh
day.
wow, awesome.
So he was saying that when you do stuff traditionally, you have to think a lot more steps ahead,
Yeah, that's right.
right?
That's right.
And because he does so much digitally now, he feels like, if you don't keep practicing it, you don't keep going back to the traditional stuff, you will lose that edge where you're thinking
Yeah.
like seven steps ahead or whatever it might
Right.
be.
Right. Because you don't have anything it's not a risk because you're like, I can save another copy or I mean, I can Control Z for however many levels your computer, your RAM allows for, or whatever, and so, yeah, there's not as much risk. And so, like for me, when I paint a passage and then I've got to go, like there's like a rope or something or whatever is going over top of this area, I've got to paint that and then I've got to put that stroke over top. And if that stroke's wrong, I got to redo the whole thing underneath. So, for me, like, especially when it's wet and wet, there'll be times when I'll just be like, I'll take a breath and be like, all right, what am I going to do here? Let me get the mixture right. Let me do, and then it's like, whoop, and you just place that stroke. And then, when it doesn't work, you're like, come on, you know, but when it does, it's great. It's great. And then someone who knows what they're looking at can see that and be like, look at that. That was done while it was wet. Like it's just whoop, right over top. And so it really carries with it that risk and reward sort of, you
Totally
know.
love that kind of aspect about a lot of paintings, especially when it looks like it was done really really quick as well.
Yeah, yeah, and you sat there for a half an hour figuring out how to do it, but it looks quick. Yeah. Yeah.
Now we have a question from the audience. Arturo asks, "I'm taking the self-taught environment design class. I would like critiques. Is there any way to get one from Nathan, maybe another student?" Well, for Arturo, I would just recommend posting your stuff in the Schoolism student group on Facebook. Um, that'd be the best way to get critique. To get critique from Nathan himself, well, obviously that's what the premium classes are for. The premium classes, you actually get your instructor to paint and draw over top of your stuff, catering towards your specific skill level, your specific, you know, pluses and minuses. And that way, we can get over hurdles much quicker. And of course, Jonathan, he's doing the same thing with his class. Um, I believe it starts in February. I want to say. I hope
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
get that wrong.
February 1st. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Jonathan, he's teaching the essentials of realism in his class. So not only are you doing the assignments, watching his awesome lessons, which I've already watched as well, but after you do the assignments, you hand it in, Jonathan himself will be painting and drawing and talking to you, over top of your assignment, painting it and everything. So it's direct feedback, and that's why the premium classes are very limited, and they're $1,000 each. Um, if you can afford it, I definitely recommend it. It's night and day when you have somebody painting and drawing and talking to you over top of your stuff.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. Getting that feedback it is like night and day. It's tough, when you don't have. I mean, the concepts are one thing, but then, and understanding the concepts is super important. Putting them to use practically can be tough. It can be tough. There's a lot of trial and error when you do it on your own. A lot, and you can get there a lot faster by having someone help you along.
Yeah, definitely. Um, and right now, Masay, you're taking a class with feedback, right?
Yep, I'm taking Daniel Arriaga's character design class.
So Daniel Arriaga, for anybody that doesn't know, he's a character designer and art director at Pixar. So
That's
have
awesome.
you? Which week are you in now?
We just handed in our second assignment, so we're starting on our third week just today, I believe. And yeah, I feel like it's cool seeing like a professional, do the demos in front of you and then how they draw over your stuff. And it's also neat to see how like even professionals, they have to do like a lot of the whole process. You have to love the process before getting to the final product, and he's just like ingraining that in us right now. So it's like the fundamentals, how you guys were talking about it earlier.
Gotta respect the process.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's totally like this topic that keeps coming up is like
Yeah,
professionals respect the
Yeah.
process.
It's like
absolutely.
I feel like a lot of students, we just want to get to the final product because that's all we see
Of
in
course.
like the industry, because a lot of amazing artists, they're just doing all these great stuff, and we just want to get there as fast as we can, so we kind of try and like skip a lot of steps, which is it's not going to help us in the end because it's just going to take 2 times as long. And I guess what when we were talking about earlier about doing it traditionally and knowing the like 10 steps ahead, once you know that 10 steps ahead, I feel like it's a lot easier like later on in the future because you'll know which steps to take. So it's like rather than taking a short, I don't know, it's like digital. Like you
You
don't need
know,
to
and
control Z all the
a
time.
point on that, if I may, a lot of people they ask, "Oh, I'm only a beginner. Can I take schoolism classes?"
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Yeah, you can totally take schoolism classes." And they go, "Well, I thought it was for professionals." I'm like, "Yeah, it is. It's for professionals as well." And they're like, well, I'm not good enough to take a class with professionals. I'm like, yes, you are, and it's actually better because
Yeah,
when you're taking classes from non-professionals, a lot of times you get all these bad art habits that
that's
later
right.
on I gotta correct.
That's exactly right. Dude, I would whatever kind of Facebook like or like star I could add to that. 100% behind you on that. I've seen, and it makes me mad. Like I've gone up to some teachers and been like, you're doing these people a disservice. Like, by focusing on these things, like totally like making the non-important things of the utmost importance, and you're ruining these people's. I've gotten mad about that from time to time because they it's yeah, you need to learn from a professional because they're going to be able to cut through all the crap. Like they're going to tell you what's actually important and what's not important, you know? It's like if you go to a boxing gym, right? Everybody's like, "Well, I can punch, I can do this, I can do that." And then you go in a boxing gym and what does the first guy say to you? Here, go ahead, show me, do some punching. What's he going to say? Your footwork's not right. That's what he's going to say. Your footwork's not right. You need to come do these footwork drills. Everyone, but I want to punch. I want to punch. I want to do this. But the real professionals are going to say, yes, but your footwork's bad. And the gimmicky guys, the ones that would be like, I got the secret to being this secret punch I'll teach you. You can knock anybody out with it,
Yeah.
like, that's how you know that it's not right, and so yeah, it doesn't matter what level you're at. A professional is going to be able to help you cut through that crap, get right to what's essential, and really know what direction to send you in, because they've been there and they've done it. They've been through it.
Yeah, I heard on another note, I heard you're a big UFC fan,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I am. I'm
I'm a pretty
actually
big
like,
UFC fan too.
are you really? Who's your man? Who's your man?
I got lots. I don't have an
Me too. Me
absolute
too.
favorite,
Me too.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I love watching it. And you know what's cool is like I don't know when you started watching it, but I started watching in the very beginning from number one.
Oh wow. So you're talking like Shamrock and like
This is
Hoist
like Hoist
Gracie and
Gracie before
yeah.
Shamrock, before it was Hoist Gracie, a sumo wrestler,
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
sort of neo-Nazi dude, and
Yes.
yeah, there's a bunch of them. It was like Street Fighter back then.
It totally was.
Okay,
It really
so
was.
I'm gonna bring this back into the topic. Okay, so don't worry.
That's
So in the
awesome.
very beginning, it was much more like whose method is better, right?
Right. Yeah.
Is it the sumo method? Is it the boxing
Right.
method? There's even one guy
Yep.
that had an actual boxing glove on.
Yeah, just
in the
one.
very
I remember
beginning.
that guy. That just had one.
Yeah, and then you got the karate masters wearing the,
He got
you
got
know,
beat up, that
the
guy.
judo
He-
guys wearing the gis and all this stuff, and everybody's trying to kind of, prove that their martial arts is the best, right? And
Right.
obviously they learn from masters, and they are masters themselves of
Right.
particular martial arts. Fast forward 15, years or however many years it's been. Actually, it's probably been about 20 years.
I know we're gonna keep that on the down low. We won't tell people how old we are.
Yeah, so, fast forward all those years. Now, is it about the Thai fighter versus the Wing Chun master? No.
Right.
It's about mixed martial arts where
Right.
people are learning from a bunch of masters, all in different disciplines.
Yep. Yep.
That is very much how I see art. You can't just learn from one master, even. You gotta search out the masters of the universe.
That's awesome.
Or whatever
That's
it might
awesome.
be, right?
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. Well, and also there's some key foundational things too. Like, well, I'm actually starting up next year. I went in and did some introductory classes there's an MMA gym around me, and I'm gonna do like Muay Thai and judo and like grappling and all that stuff. I'm gonna start doing it, and I went in there and took the Muay Thai class, and it kicked my butt. And really what it was, and I had been doing some workouts and stuff, but I started doing Insanity about 2 months ago because because I realized that my cardio was so bad, you know,
Beach
and so I told
body,
him,
or is that beach body? I
yeah,
forget.
yeah, yeah,
Beach
yeah. So
body
I'm doing these,
insanity
which is,
workout.
it's hard, you know, and so like because that's a foundational thing. Like if my heart can't take what I'm doing there, I certainly can't learn very much. You know what I mean? If I get tired when I'm doing everything, you know, and so. But yeah, there's so many fundamental things like that, you know, and like you said too, you have to be well-rounded, and those guys have respect for. I mean, even the guy that's real popular now, McGregor, you know, he's a real loudmouth and everything, but one of the things he says is that he likes going around the world exploring different ways of movement and all that stuff. Like he's looking at everyone's different way of doing things and you know absorbing that and you know all that. So it's the same as art. You're absolutely right. You've got to really you want to be well rounded when somebody's and that comes back to that humility thing when you're there, even if you do something well, somebody else does something well too, you know. Learn from them, take it from them, you know, and put it to use, you know. It's true.
Totally. What an awesome way to end the session. You know, and I just finished my Yoda just in time.
It
So,
looks awesome.
kind of like I don't know. I was thinking that if, like Yoda, I forget how old he is. So, fans, please don't hate me. Maybe he's like 600 years old or something. And I was thinking, well, what if we show a Yoda that's, in his like first 100 years? What would he look like? And I was thinking as you go back further and further, he starts to look like my uncle. I don't know. But
It's
anyways, I want
awesome.
to give a huge thanks to Jonathan Hardesty for being a guest on the stream. Massey for pitching in and doing her thing. I want to mention a couple things. So one is Jonathan Hardesty's Essentials for Realism class starts. When does it start? February.
February 1st.
February 1st. It's a
Yeah.
very unique, very special opportunity where he's only taking a few students and he will be painting and drawing over top of your stuff. How much better does that get? Then I want to mention that we have just opened up the Montreal workshop happening March 12th and 13th, 2016. It's going to have
Awesome.
Pixar art director, character designer Daniel Arriaga. We're going to have story artist and director Chris Pern, who is working on the Han Solo movie coming out way in the future. He's working
Oh,
on that
nice.
currently. Luis Gonzalez, story artist from Pixar. Luc Demarchelier of DreamWorks fame, and now he's a freelance artist doing all sorts of awesome stuff. Nathan Fowkes, who everybody knows as being a killer painter. Steven Silver, and that's just Montreal. We also have Florence, March 19th. Helen Mingju Chen, Ryan Lang, and myself. We're going to be all instructors there. Helen and Ryan are both of much of Disney, the new Disney movies fame. Seattle, April 7th and 8th is with Marcelo Vignali, Dice Tsutsumi, Robert Kondo, both Oscar nominees, as well as Tara Whitlatch, who I consider the queen of creature design, and Mike Yamada and myself. That's in Seattle, and that's lined up the same weekend as the Emerald City Comic Con. And last thing is The Perfect Bait audiobook that I wrote a few years ago. It's been sold out for a while. It's a free download. You can look for the link on my Twitter at
Awesome.
Bobby Chiu. And there we go. So thank you again, John. It's been awesome. We got to do a part two of this.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it was so easy. It's just so easy to just hang out and chat with you. I love it. It's been great.
I know. I love it too, man. We've got a bromance that's brewing.
Right on. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. Post your Chiustream exercises if you've done them with the hashtag Chiustream. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Actually, and the next time is going to be Wednesday. I'm going to have my buddy Thomas Fluharty on the stream. He's been
Ooh,
just destroying it on Instagram with all his amazing work, and it's been
he's
so
so
great.
good.
Yeah. All right. So take care, everybody. See you next time.
See you guys. Thanks. Hi, my name is Jonathan Hardesty, and I've been a fine artist for 13 years. In my class, Essentials of Realism, we're going to explore what makes a work of art look realistic. As a representational painter, I've had to think about realism a lot over the years. And realism breaks down to 4 key concepts: proportion, value, edge, and color. In my class, we're going to learn how to understand those concepts, observe them properly from reality, and also be able to manipulate them while maintaining realism. All lectures are pre-recorded, so it doesn't matter what time zone you're in or what your sleeping habits are. You can access all the content when it's convenient for you. There's also no specific medium requirement for this class. Students can learn just as effectively painting and drawing digitally. Throughout the length of this class, I'll be available to answer your questions, help you with any problems, and give you one-on-one personalized instruction. In each stage, I'll be painting directly over top of your work and helping you grasp these concepts and make them your own. I have a real passion for teaching, so I'm looking forward to seeing you in my class. Sign up right away because there's only a limited amount of spaces. I'll see you there.